Thanks for joining us live with Miami's Community News. And our guest today is Michael Moot with the Miami-Dade County Mosquito Control Division. And you are the Public Information Officer, so you know everything mosquitoes. That's what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, thanks for having me, Michael. That's a great setup. I don't know if I know everything there is to know, but I'm going to try to give you everything that I do know.
Okay. We see that we have some mosquitoes right here.
Yes, we
You're
do.
not going to let these loose, are you?
No. These are actually larvae. They can't exactly fly yet. But I thought it would be a nice visual to kind of demonstrate one of the big points today.
So this is sort of like a yellow. It looks like a beer a little bit, all right?
Yeah.
And across the bottom are those larvae on the bottom that didn't make it?
No. Some of them might be,
food?
but this is just like dirt. See what we have here is essentially a sample from the field. We have our inspectors checking residences and businesses throughout the county 5-6 days a week, and so when they come across mosquito breeding. When they see the mosquito larvae, we ask them to bring a sample back to the lab so we can identify the mosquito type, because you can tell the species by looking at the larvae.
All right. So you have traps,
right?
How many traps are there?
There's 320 scattered throughout the county.
Traps.
Yeah, 320
distributed throughout the county.
Yes, wherever there's an urban core, wherever we have people living, there's usually a trap not far away.
And these are typically in trees?
We hang them from trees, yes, but some of them look like little garbage cans, and we place them behind vegetation.
And so you guys, you go out there, guys and gals go out there, and they bring back these traps.
Right. On a weekly basis, we're checking for the number of mosquitoes that are out there at any given point. We're looking at the species and we're looking at the gender, because, as you know, only female mosquitoes bite. So we like to know the ratio. And we also are testing these mosquitoes to see if they're carrying any kinds of diseases.
So do you think, Michael, that when people think it's mosquito season, which is, I know there's a season all year round, but they get a little worse during this time, do people think about diseases, or do they think about getting bit and it's an annoyance?
That's a good question. I don't think people really they don't really think about the diseases, especially since we're already 5 or 6 years removed from Zika, which was the last really big disease issue that we had here in Miami-Dade County. So it's easy to forget.
Yes, and I remember when that outbreak was. It was part in Wynwood and Miami Beach and the
Little River.
Little River, and the department kept saying, but you don't have to worry because they're not going too far away.
Right. It's because that mosquito species, that the Aedes aegypti, which is the yellow fever Zika mosquito, they don't fly very far. I think some studies have shown that they don't go further than a block or two.
You mean from where they were born?
Right. They don't travel.
But
they're not very heavy flyers, so in the wind they're just demolished.
That's amazing. So what would you say your best advice is how people like ourselves can protect themselves against getting bit and try to limit the possibility of them catching some disease from mosquitoes?
So our best advice, we always say to drain and cover. And again, I brought the mosquito larvae today to illustrate that if you see standing water in your backyard, and if you especially see these kinds of little wigglers floating around in them.
Is that the official scientific word, wigglers?
Wiggler, yes. It's very scientific, very, very scientific, wiggler. So you should get rid of standing water so that this doesn't happen. In about 4 or 5 days, these mosquitoes in here, these larvae will have gone through the entire life cycle, and they'll become adults, and they'll be ready to bite you. So drain any standing water that you have in your yard. And over here we have mosquito repellent wipes. I don't know if the camera can see these. Now, pretty much this is the Bug X brand. We don't really endorse any brand in particular. There's about 4 different types of mosquito repellents we know work well.
So you can take that with you and put it on yourself rather than spray.
Right. These are water-based. I actually like these a lot because they don't go on greasy, and they last 6 or 7 hours. They're really good. So I highly recommend mosquito wipes.
Okay, so let's talk about at home. I know there's one plant, I forget the name of it. It's sort of a prickly sort of plant. It goes up like this, and there's little...
The bromeliad? Yes.
That must be a favorite of mosquitoes.
Yes, it is, because the leaf type, the leaf structure itself captures water, and that's one of the things that it's evolved to help itself continue to grow and perpetuate. But unfortunately, that standing water is going to attract mosquitoes, especially these Aedes aegypti, these yellow fever Zika mosquitoes. So it's very important to treat those bromeliads periodically with a substance called BTI, which is a larvicide.
No, and BTI, they can go to most hardware. Or
any
stores.
hardware store, or you can order it online. If you keyword search mosquito bits, you'll see a brand that comes up. It's called Summit brand. It's red, black, and yellow. Again, we're not endorsing any one particular brand over another. It's just these are the ones that are most readily available. So you sprinkle. They look like grape nuts. You remember the grape nuts cereal?
Yeah, sure.
Little granular granular bits that you spray. You kind of just sprinkle.
So
into
let's
your
say
plants.
this was that bromeliad in that little tulip type of cup that it has
Right.
on it. So there would be water, and there would be these guys here, and you just go ahead and put it on there.
Right. You put a few grains of this larvicide in it, and it starts to deteriorate slowly. So then it becomes they're bacterial spores. So it almost becomes like a food item for these mosquito larvae. So they eat the bacterial spore. It's poisonous to them, and I must say it only kills mosquito larvae, mosquito and black fly larvae. It's not harmful to fish, to pets, to
And
wild
how long
animals.
does it take before
they die within a few hours. It deteriorates. It just eats up their stomach and they die.
That's good. Now, and around people's home, if they have thick bushes, mosquitoes like to stay where it's dark and somewhat moist.
They like to rest. Like after they take a blood meal, female mosquitoes they like to go under vegetation to rest and let the whole process of converting the protein in the blood into their eggs. So yes, you should be careful for heavy brush.
So I asked Dr. Petrie the purpose of mosquito, and he looked at me like I was like in elementary school. He says to eat and to reproduce.
That's it, pretty much.
Right?
And they become food for other animals that are highly dependent on them. That's why I like to say we're not the mosquito eradication division. We're the mosquito control division for that reason. It's because we don't want to completely eliminate them, because doing so will upset several food chains, and we don't want to do that.
So I live on a farm, all right? And so you say, okay, our life cycle is for the dog food. Cat food. The cat food is there. And who comes for the cat food? The other cats, all right? And
raccoons.
And raccoons.
Possums. They love cat food.
Dogs, peacocks, right? Toads, all right? The geckos sometimes come down, but we can hear our geckos.
Egyptian geese love cat food too. Did you know that? Egyptian geese?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Maybe you could throw one over our fence. But we recognize that if we were to stop feeding that cat, all right, that the stuff that he brings to our front door, all right, people have different thoughts on it. But if all the rats were gone, there would be some other thing. All right, we recognize that. All right, if we got rid of all the doves that eat the bird food that's underneath the cages, all right, that creates another problem. So, and by the way, we have hawks that come in and
feeding
eat the
on
doves,
the doves. Right.
So all of that is, and specifically to that life cycle that's there.
So Rancho Millers for perpetuating all this wonderful wildlife.
Yeah, so my wife and I sit out front and we just watch it going on. The peacock came and he sat out on our roof the other day from across the street. About 20 minutes later, he was in the barn. He didn't like what he saw. I think he got scared with all the birds. And went back home. That's where you belong over there. Only come over here for food. But as far as plants, all right, they're in the plants, all right, and they're what can we do with the mosquitoes that are taking a moment to rest after they suck blood out of people? Is there something we can do with those plants?
Well, I tell you what you can do is you can reduce the shrubbery. That is keep your plants trim, or you can also call us if you're having a mosquito issue. If you dial 311, you can request a mosquito inspection. You can also use the website at miamidade.gov/mosquito.
And that's really easy to use the website. The county who has ever done it, my hat's off to them.
Right, thank you. The call center is open certain amount of hours. So if you call after hours, you might not be able to get what you need. But on the web, it's 24/7. So you go to the website, you request an inspection. We send an inspector out to your home. He's going to check and see, he or she is going to check and see if they find mosquito breeding. And if they find adult mosquitoes, they're able to eliminate them. They each have a backpack or a handheld unit that allows them to spray the mosquito adulticide and get rid of the problem right then and there.
So lots of people think, well, call the truck.
No, you can't.
Right.
We can't.
So and as somebody from the county once told me when we had some traffic issues, we want speed bumps and speed humps. He said, listen, tell me what your problem is. I got this bag of tricks over here. You tell me what the problem is, we'll figure out what to do. But don't tell us what to do first until we diagnose it.
Yes, right.
So
that's actually, it goes back to state law, is that we cannot apply a pesticide unless one of our licensed and highly trained and licensed inspectors confirms the presence of mosquitoes. And I know that's infuriating, but we can't just send a truck on request. We certainly can't send a plane on request, which is that's another common misconception. People think that we spray by airplane all the time, and we don't. In fact, the last time we did was exactly 5 years ago.
So your staff goes out to the 340 traps. They figure out what's going on. About the number of mosquitoes in there if it's a high number or low number
Right.
based on
We'll see
history.
hundreds or thousands in the trap, right? And
Yeah.
we'll see that it jumped from one week to the next.
So you're
That's
probably
where
about to get some calls.
Right.
Right.
Or we know that if it's a high trap count, we're going to send out the truck to take care of the problem efficiently. We know exactly where the problem is, and we're able to take care of it, on a very high, on a highly targeted level.
And people want to know what's how bad it is to breathe that stuff.
But yeah, it's
spray.
bad, right? No, the thing about the spray is that, first of all, it's all pesticides that have been approved for use. They've been in use for decades, and the amount that we're spraying is very judicious. We pay particular attention to the droplet size. So we're talking about, an acre or a football field. We're only using about an ounce of this pesticide, so it's not a lot. It's, the droplet size is such that it kills only mosquitoes. It's not going to harm anything that's bigger than a mosquito.
So when your truck's going down the road and you see this cloud, it's been years since I've seen it. How high up does it go?
It depends on the type of truck, but generally between 50 and 100 feet.
50 and 100. And
Right.
then it goes through the air. But are there mosquitoes floating around up there? So we see them when they're like 6 feet below.
Pretty much, but
Right.
they don't
When we
don't
see-
fly very much higher than 50 or 100 feet, because then they start getting caught in the crosswind. And again, some of these species aren't very good. They don't fly very well.
So in Dade County, if you're going to guess, how many different species are there, more or less?
I'm told there are about 50 different types
So
in Miami-Dade County.
So if you looked at a species and you said, oh, that one's from Homestead, can you do that? Or
Well,
that one's from Aventura?
We say South Florida more or less, because we find all different types in all of our traps, regardless of the location. So we generally say South Florida.
Okay. So what is it, once you catch those guys, you look at them, you count them, all right? You figure out what species are there, and they're experts on your team. A lot of women, I understand, right?
We have an excellent team.
All right.
Yeah.
And that they go and they go, okay, in any given trap, are there 5 different types, 10 different types?
It really depends on the time of day or the time of the week. It really varies. There are all sorts of different types.
And is also dependent on the time of the year?
Yeah, I mean, we have some mosquitoes that are that tend to breed towards the cooler months, like if I'm not mistaken, the Anopheles, the common house mosquito, is more towards the winter months. But then now that we have a lot of heat and a lot of rain, we have some of these invasive species like the Aedes albopictus and the Aedes aegypti.
Go ahead, say that
guys.
a couple more times.
Aedes
Right.
albopictus, Aedes aegypti, Aedes albopictus.
Yes. Listen, a couple months ago is National Mosquito Week. Who knew?
Yes.
So tell us about what the county does and why is that a week?
Well, actually, just within the last couple of years, we've been observing the Florida Mosquito Control Awareness Week, which happens in April, and the National Mosquito Control Awareness Week, which always happens in June. And so each one is kind of driven by the state association of mosquito control. And then the one that we had just a couple of weeks ago was the national one. So the American Mosquito Control Association essentially designates this week for all of the districts and divisions throughout the country to kind of put forth the message, like to amplify what it is they're doing. That is, beware that this is the peak season and you got to take more care of yourself. And also, here's what you can do. So we always take that opportunity to illustrate and highlight the work that we're doing. So one day it'll be more about inspections. Another day it'll be about truck spraying. Another day it'll be about traps. And another day this year, we focused on mosquito identification.
Well, I know when we're repeatedly exposed to things that we learn from that, I want you to know I'm probably the number one civilian, all right, not working for the county that knows so much about garbage pickup.
Well, that's good to know. We have Jean Marie on here and Frank and
Yes.
James and a good crew.
Yes, and the department, it's pretty amazing the work that goes into sharing with people all the things that are going on. Now,
Well, that's a credit to our director, our department director, Mike Fernandez, kind of gave us these marching orders a couple of years ago. He wanted us to be out there more visible and really to be out there and communicate more. We are the public information division, so it really is our job. It's incumbent upon us to talk, to speak, to do what we're doing here, and that's spread the message,
So
share the
A
information.
few months ago, you came down here and you put your hand into a clear plastic box.
Yeah,
And hundreds of mosquitoes, or thousands, I suppose,
they
jumped
attacked.
on your hand.
Yeah. I tried to do that this morning, but unfortunately, our colony is kind of like in an off period, so we didn't have any hungry adults.
All right. And so when people do that, because I suspect you're not the only one.
No.
Is there some scientific reason that people would do that?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
there is. There's several important reasons, and the most important reason is when you have mosquitoes in a cage like that. It's usually that you're growing and you're trying to perpetuate a colony to study them. So in order to keep these the mosquito life cycle going, somebody has to volunteer to put their hand in and give them a blood meal. Essentially, you're feeding the mosquito to let them continue breeding and living. So me as a public information officer and as a public servant, I think there's not many people there at mosquito control that are willing to stick their hand in.
Folks, I saw him do it. We have the picture up on the wall.
Yeah, so
right?
I do it in the name of science and because obviously I have family here in the county and I want them to be safe and I want everyone to be safe.
So and how many times would you say you got bit? And what does that feel like getting bit?
Easily 300, 400 bites.
Okay.
And what does it feel? It feels like little pinpricks.
And why do mosquito bites bother us so much? All right.
Well, it's because we're getting a needle inserted into our skin. It's triggering our pain sensors. And the other thing is, the mosquito when it bites you, it injects you with a little bit of their saliva, which has somewhat of an effect of kind of dulling your sense, so you don't feel them and you don't kill them. So some people are allergic to to this saliva, and that's why it kind of itches. And people tend to scratch. So that's the added
how long
inconvenience.
Does it take for their saliva to wear off where you go? That hurts.
Just a couple of minutes, I would say.
So we have this mosquito, been around for how many years? Billions?
Tens of millions of years.
Right?
Any estimate between 30 and 50 million.
So it ain't going away. All right. It's what it is.
It's been here
it's
before
part
us.
Of the cycle.
Right. It's going to be here long after us.
So they are, if you go to lakes and such, you can see that they're little critters. Probably some of them are mosquitoes.
Well, not so much lakes. They thrive more in ponds where there's standing water. There isn't much circulation. The other thing about lakes is that mosquitoes have evolved to understand that you have natural predators there. You're going to have fish. You're going to have tadpoles. You're going to have dragonfly nymphs. So they tend to stay away from that sort of situation.
There's a guy that sells fish, and he has these concrete like coffins. But he's got that water running all the time.
Right.
Mosquitoes can't survive in that with the water.
No, they don't like the standing water. They don't like the running water. I should say they like the standing water. They like dirty, opaque water. They prefer that.
Okay, Michael, to your right over there, you got some critters. What are these?
Well, this is essentially to illustrate the cycle itself. Here we have like a little raft of eggs. Here we have the mosquito larvae, which is what we have in this little container here. I don't know if you guys can see them moving around, but come on.
There they are.
Showtime. So this is the mosquito larvae, and then right over here you have the pupae and the adult. So we have a little bit of a representation of the life cycle itself.
So from the time an egg is hatched, all right, I know some can take longer to hatch, but when they hatch, how long does it take for them to get to be an adult, start laying eggs, and how long do they live?
Anywhere from 7 to 10 days it takes to go from egg to biting adult, sometimes a little less, depending on the species and depending on the temperature, because the heat tends to accelerate the life cycle. And as for the point about how long they live, it depends on the species. But generally speaking, the male will live about 10 to 12 days, and the female will live up to 40 days. So it's not very long.
Just the way it is.
Yeah.
It managed to make it up to the two-legged friends.
Yes.
All right. So again, so some big things that people can do at their homes are what?
Drain the standing water. Drain, check your yard after rainfall or after, a nice soaking with your irrigation. Check your rain gutters. Make sure they're free and clear. If you have tree holes or if you have little holes just in your yard, or if you see standing water close by, because now when we have a massive amount of rain, we have all this water that's sitting around. We have some parts of our drainage system are unfortunately overwhelmed, so you're going to have standing water. So be vigilant. If you see that, get rid of the standing water, or if you see that the standing water is lasting more than a few days, call us. Let us know. Call 311 or use the website, miamidade.gov mosquito. Tell us, look, we have this standing water that's not going anywhere.
So, Michael, there are a lot of, we as owners of buildings and renters have a lot of flat roofs where water, depending on what roof you're listening
They could last,
be out there.
Right? They could be breeding.
Right. But somebody can go through their yard though, look at the plants, right? See if there's holes where there's water lots of times dog dish, cat dishes that are out there.
Right. That's a good point. Refresh the outdoor pet dishes. Refresh the water every 4 or 5 days.
So when the cat water turns green, it's time to
That's
change
probably a bad idea. Yeah. So that's probably a bad situation. Also, bird baths. If you want to buy the same type of larvicide that we mentioned before, that's available in little dunks. They look like donuts. You put 1 or 2 of those in your bird bath. You don't have to worry about it. But if you don't have that, just make sure you're replacing the water every once in a while.
And now that you mentioned, we have a waterfall at our house in the pool.
Is it moving?
Yeah, when we turn it on.
Okay. Well, are you treating the pool water? Are you keeping it clear?
Yeah.
Then you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. All right.
You don't have to worry about it.
That's good. All right. So if it rains a lot and the ground is moist, all right, which this is the time, I don't even know what month this is anymore, where we've had some
July 11th.
Right? So will the mosquitoes, when they see that it's there in a yard, all right, that's really moist, do they select that, or do they select something that, or do they select something that's hidden?
Generally speaking, they won't, because they understand that it's temporary, and they don't want to lay eggs somewhere they know they're not going to be successful. But it has happened before. If the water's going to stick around for a couple of weeks, if it's going to be there and they're going to notice it there, then they will probably go for it.
Nature's amazing,
isn't it?
Self-preservation. Said that's not going to work anymore. You got to do it.
Right.
So
your standard garden variety puddle, they're going to ignore. But if it's an empty field, a clearing that's going to accumulate water and hold the water for a long period of time, odds are yes, they will.
So we have some longans, and so sometimes people come over and they go, "Do you have longans? Yeah. Can I go get some? Sure, help yourself."
Yeah, go for it.
And it's always fun.
They always run back. Right?
Yeah, I say, I'm sitting out here in the sun. You go ahead, pick whatever you want. And immediately, as soon as they pull the first one, the whole parts of the trees bounces up,
so
and the mosquitoes are hiding under there. Is there a heat temperature, and then a cold temperature that the mosquitoes just don't like?
Well, the heat temperature, I'm not really sure. That's something I think a bit above my pay grade or my knowledge grade. I do know that mosquitoes around 50 degrees Fahrenheit or below, they tend to just become inactive. They can't deal with it.
But do they die then? Well, they're going to die anyway.
Well, they go into a stasis. They really just don't move. Kind of like our iguana, our iguanas, our invasive iguana friends. If it gets to a certain temperature, they kind of just freeze and fall from the trees, that sort of thing.
Yes.
But yeah, they're the other question, the follow-up question would be, how often do we get 50 degrees here in Miami? Not very often at all. We have 2 days of sweater and boot weather here. That's it.
So speaking of iguanas, if people are going around the yard, they see iguanas. What can people do about these iguanas that are eating their hibiscus in their bushes? Who do they call?
Mike, I'm going to defer that question. I would,
check state law. You'll see what you can do.
Well, I would call the Florida Division of Fish and Wildlife, miamidade.gov.
Wow.
I think would probably be a good source, but I really don't know. I have kind of mixed feelings on iguanas. I feel sorry for them because they're, a living, breathing creature, but at the same time, they're an apex predator. They're invasive. So they're causing havoc here. They're wrecking the natural system.
One of our neighbors used to import iguanas. So we'd have these outside screen things with the little iguanas like that. So we had, over the 30 years we lived there, thousands would be appropriate, just going around the neighborhood. All right. The dogs would chase them down. All right. But folks, if you have iguanas that are dead or dying, don't let your your dogs get to them. If they've been dead for a couple of days, they get really sick.
Oh, they get poisoned. Wow.
Yes.
That's terrible.
And so if somebody's sitting on their patio and they're sort of controlling that environment, and they got the little mosquitoes that are going around, maybe some other bugs, is there something that they can do on their patio that's covered by the screen patio so that it distracts or attracts and then the mosquitoes die?
I would just say, if you have a screened-in patio and you have mosquitoes coming in anyway, just check to see if there's any holes, anything that you're not seeing. Keep your screens in a good state of repair, and if they're already in, then you could consider using a bug bomb to get rid of whatever critters got in, or just wear repellent inside, too.
And the towelettes is like a good thing. I'm still spooked about spraying, even though it may be the same thing. This is a little more.
Yeah, this sort of is. This type of towelette here has the same active ingredient as it's DEET. It's DEET. So it's a lot of the common brands like Off or Deep Woods or that sort of thing. It's that same sort of it's the same active ingredient. but it is effective.
So some people use an attractant in a device, and then the mosquitoes come over, and then they get zapped.
Yeah, the problem is that sometimes those bug zappers they also zap moths.
Yes.
You know, and some of the friendlier type insects. So we definitely recommend repellent. That's the line.
Okay. Michael, your wealth of knowledge about the critters that we only pay attention to at a certain part of the year. Well, thank you very much for coming down.
Thanks for having us.
And
You're
it's
always very kind.
My pleasure. And thank you for doing this. And folks, you can check out miamidade.gov /mosquitoes. And if you got some questions, you can find it there, or they can dial 311.
Right. The website, or we're also on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 305 Mosquito. So we invite you to check us out. We're constantly posting, even on the weekends and holidays. So, check us out.
And I follow you guys.
Thank you for that.
And thanks for doing that. Again, folks, thank you for joining us. This is Live with Miami's Community News. Have a great day. See you.
Thank you.